We have this article from VOX.com. Take a look. This is from like 2 weeks ago. Sound of Freedom wants to raise awareness about child trafficking. Here's what it's really doing. Oh, what it's really doing. I love this. Let me just do a quick search.
You know, Fox used to be
Take a look. It says
FOQS.
that extremism is at least as dark and dangerous as the very thing Sound of Freedom wants to combat. The crazy thing about it is like
that Fox made it.
Well, Fox made it, and I compare it to Law and Order SVU. There's no evil government actors snatching kids under their arms and like running out of a pizza restaurant or anything like that. It's a law enforcement story.
Yeah. That Disney wanted at one point.
Right. Yes.
When they wanted it, it wasn't extreme.
They bought it.
But when they don't have it anymore, it is extreme. I mean, I think what you're doing with moving to sort of creating culture through the marketplace is really interesting. In some ways, it reminds me of what Matt Gaetz did, saying, Jack Smith, the prosecutor that's investigating Trump, he just was like, well, you can't have any more money. This isn't worth it. This is craziness. And I think in some way, really, that's ultimately, I mean, we talk about a lot with like Public Square. The dollar is one way to leverage power against these institutions. So internally, Republicans who are in Congress could theoretically cut off some of these investigations if they cut off DOJ funding.
money.
And if you guys are able to say, like, we know people who are willing to spend money for entertainment that they feel represents them, and we make the entertainment, then we're able to circulate this money through people who have the values. And I find that really interesting.
Well, we also learned, like, I went to CinemaCon this year. CinemaCon is where all the studios come to talk to the theaters. So the exhibitors are the theaters, and those are mainstream Americans. These are 3,000 plus owners of theaters all across this country, and they're just normal, everyday, middle-class heartland Americans. And so the studios come in, and at CinemaCon, it's the most bizarre experience where you've got these middle American theater owners, and then you got these studios that are coming out of their bubble, and then they're just trying to sell their content to the theater owners. And so they're kind of like, I don't. Is
there like a cultural difference?
They don't really like. There's
almost adversarial
relationship,
but at the same time they're sitting there whining and dining the theaters, trying to just say, okay, we have to work with you.
But they look down on them.
I was walking around with this shirt on, this Angel shirt, and I couldn't make it down the hallway without 5-6 different theater owners just stopping and being like, hey, they pull out a cross and they're like, I'm on your side.
Like, why are you whispering?
Keep going. And I'm like, thank you. But the amount of support from the theaters made us realize there's just this realization, as long as we can make it economically viable for alternative content to go to the theaters, they will pick that content. They'll support it.
Yeah.
And that's how the money's made.
Listen to this.
Theaters.
July 3rd, we had 2,634 theaters for Sound of Freedom. July 7th, 2,852. July 14th, 3,265. July 21st, 2,285. July 28th, which is coming tomorrow. What day are we?
Tomorrow.
It's this Friday.
28th.
3,411. This is like the first movie I've ever heard of that has expanded the number of theaters for 4 Fridays straight.
You may have misread the number. I misheard you. I thought the third number you read was a 2,000, but it was
3,285.
And then up to 36.
So it went from 3,265 to 85 to 3,411.
I've noticed it, like, consciously, the way it's expanding too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like caught fire, like psychological fire.
Well, listen to this stat. This is just on a Reddit thread. Sound of Freedom has a shot at 27 straight days over $3 million. Even Endgame didn't do that. And I believe only a single-digit number of movies have done that. Somewhere, someone correct me if I'm wrong. And everybody's like, Titanic didn't do it. They made it only to 19 days. I'd be interested to know what the record is. That's just a Reddit thread.
Are tickets more expensive? Because inflation obviously has got to be playing a role.
Sure.
Yeah. How much are they now?
So the average ticket price is like $11.80 or something like that.
Yeah, and if you go back to like Passion of the Christ, it was somewhere
$7
or $8.
Change.
Yeah.
$7 and change.
So Sound of Freedom was number 2 for the July 14th to 20th.
Yes. And but the week. I think we've had 4 or 5 days that we've been number 1, and But one other thing that's different is that they've refactored all the theaters to do these lounge chairs.
I love it. That's what we had.
And so it's
at
actually
Regal, yeah.
it's changed. Even though the ticket price has gone up, your actual number of seats are smaller, and so it's kind of changed the economic environment of the theaters.
Yeah.
Sound of Freedom's got several days. July 4th, it was number one. July 10th and 11th was number one. And July 20th, it was number one.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's
And growing.
Yes.
You mentioned crowdfunding, because Angel Studios has a crowdfunding model. You say 100,000 angel investors that come in and they vote on what. Do you ever find that causes problems, like chaos within the structure of the organism?
So far, what we've seen is this incredible aptitude for choosing a hit. Like our very first theatrical release was called His Only Son. It was this little $250,000 film. Nobody would have guessed to take this film to theaters. Like, you would not. This is not the kind of film you'd take to theaters. It doesn't have a big enough budget. Doesn't have any named people.
First-time
it doesn't
director.
have a first-time director. Like, this film shouldn't have gone to theaters.
The main actor's from Lebanon. The main actress is from Iran, and the boy who plays Abraham Isaac, he's from Israel. Like, they're just no-namers that are.
But it did well.
But we got the Guild score, and we're like, whoa. And then we put it out there for crowdfunding, and it raised $1.25 million in 100 hours, and we were expecting to raise $400,000 in 30 days. And we're just like, okay, we got to lean into this because what the Guild is saying. And then it hit number 3 in the box office against some huge tentpoles.
But I would assume this is one of the things that maybe Hollywood is forgetting is important. Like, you guys are talking to actual people who are interested in a movie, who would put their money behind movies and saying, what do you want to see? Whereas Hollywood has their own enclave of people, and they're asking each other. It's such an echo chamber. How could you get accurate feedback on what a good movie would be?
Yeah.
Yes.
You said the Guild. Is the Guild the small percentage of the total crowdfunders? Who's
So
the Guild?
anybody who has invested in a previous project can be a member of the Guild, and those guys are the ones who decide the future of Angel's productions.
There's about 100,000 people in the Angel Guild, and the idea here is that they replace the Hollywood gatekeepers. Hollywood's awesome. All the creators, the craftsmen in Hollywood, they're great. The gatekeepers are the problem. And they're the ones who decide, like, this, it has to have this much diversity figure, or this much LGBTQ, it has to have this much nudity, this many sex scenes, whatever. They're the ones just like deciding these things for the content creators. And so the filmmakers are they kind of move either direction, but the gatekeepers are holding the grounds. And so the Angel Guild is a replacement of the Hollywood gatekeepers. And so we get 60 filmmakers a week submitting to Angel Studios. And then the Guild goes through and votes on that content, and about 95% of it fails, and 5% gets through
to the next step.
Yep, to the next step.
When someone submits, they submit. Oh yeah, the torch.
The torch. Yeah.
So they'll submit like a 5-minute short film,
or
a prototype.
or in the case of Sound of Freedom, they submitted the entire film. Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
Yep.
His Only Son. Anything
His Only
that's going
Son.
to theaters has to be the whole film.
Anecdotally, before the show, you guys were telling me the torch you call is like this prototype 5-minute piece or whatever, full film. So technically, Sound of Freedom was a torch.
Yeah.
It's from the Statue of Liberty's torch. I didn't know that the Statue of Liberty was crowdfunded.
Yes.
By French people.
Yes.
What the hell?
Yeah. So Frederick Bartholdi couldn't get any governments to fund the Statue of Liberty. And he had this dream of creating the biggest piece of art.
And we all know artists will try to get their budget from wherever they can.
Yes, that's right. They'll go anywhere to get their budget. But he wanted to create the biggest piece of art around the biggest idea in the world. And he first tried the Suez Canal before he'd visited America. And he got shot down. He visits America, and he decides this is the biggest idea. America is. So he goes back. He gets the president of the United States to say, I think that's a great idea. Takes back a letter, because the president didn't offer him any money. I mean, even the Washington Monument was crowdfunded. I don't know if you knew that, but because the government wouldn't pay for stuff like that back then, and
how times have changed.
They had principles. So he goes back to France, and he raises just enough money to build the torch and a hand, and he sets it up in the parks, and he takes people up in the top of the torch, and he takes black and white pictures of them. There's a whole bunch of them online. You can see this black and white pictures of this torch, and he raised $14 million in today's money over a decade.
He'd give out little pins.
Yeah.
Little things.
It was the first Kickstarter campaign,
Yes.
first crowdfunding campaign.
Yep.
And he spends a decade and he builds it. So we just modeled the entire brand of our company. As we have torches, which are the filmmakers. Even like every year we do what are called the Torch Awards, where we actually give away a copper replica of the torch of the Statue of Liberty to filmmakers. So there's the idea is around the original crowdfunding campaign.
I think a lot of the problems in today's society could be solved with crowdfunding. A lot of like roads, you're really worried about the roads, don't wait for the government, set up, but we just need maybe some organization for it, like an app or something where you can like locally send some tax money.
Yeah. And what happens is, as soon as you engage the crowd, like when we raise the smartest money we can raise for advertising is from the crowd, because everybody comes in, they maybe throw $50 at it or $20 or whatever. And then they go out and they drag all their neighbors into the theaters. So if you get 7,000, 10,000 people crowdfunding a project, you've got an army of 10,000 people out dragging everybody they know into those theaters to try to make that movie profitable.
Of the 100,000 angel investors that you currently have, do they all invest in every movie?
No, they don't all invest. Every single movie we bring on a giant chunk of new people, over half.
How do people sign up to invest?
Invest.angel.com is where the different projects go up to raise money.
And there's a link there at angel.com.
Yeah.
So.
Is it the same way for writers and stuff that want to submit, like as if you need another 1,000 submissions?
So we're not currently set up to take scripts. We only can take torches, only projects that show a vision for what you're trying to create. But there's also a link on there for the Angel Accelerator Fund, and they actually they partner with some filmmakers to help create torches.
Mm-hmm. What's it called? The
Angel Accelerator Fund.
And they'll help people that don't have money but have a great idea or like really great.
They're going to have to bring their own money. Like they match torch. Like if a torch cost $100,000, they might put up 50, and then the torch would be. Then the filmmaker would have to bring 50.
Let's talk about winning the culture war.
Yeah.
So, I think one of the reasons Sound of Freedom is so important is making $130 million several days at number one, proving that outside, as you mentioned, the gatekeepers, there's a path towards success.
Yes.
Younger people need to be able to look at the stuff that we're creating and say, there is another way to succeed. You don't have to go through the corrupt machine. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.